Good afternoon. How are we doing? Hope you're good. Hope you can hear me. All my usual paranoia about whether or not it's working. And also, it takes for me to go live and see myself in full technicolor to realise just how pasty I look. I've just been telling Leanne, who's waiting patiently backstage, that I've just had my first workout in like 18 months. I don't know if I should admit that, really, shouldn't I? I've tried to practice what I preach, but I've definitely lost my mojo for fitness and just been absolutely beasted in our gym. That's the thing, hilarious thing. I own a gym in our practice and I still don't use it. So I'm feeling a bit peaky. So I'm going to be sipping water and certainly letting Leanne do the talking, which no bad thing really, is it? That's what she's here for. But also, amusingly, me and Leanne can, you guys know us, you know we can talk. So maybe it's good for me to shut up and sip some water. Thank you for joining me. This is Chewing It Over, 12:30 till 1 o'clock weekdays with me, Jack Chew. And this is part of a 5-part series where I'm interviewing, I don't know, I like that term really, conversing with 5 of my favourites who happen to be also running for CSP Council, which is absolutely brilliant. And as I said on Friday's show last week, if you want to catch up on me unpacking a little bit about each of them, where I announced the 5 that I'll be supporting, I just can't believe me luck that they are running, but also the caliber of candidate that are running in this election, and why I think that you should be paying attention to it. You should get enthused. You should recognize that this is a real opportunity for us to really shake things up and to promote some action and take some opportunity that our profession has and that the CSP has to really move things forward. So please engage with the process. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care if you agree with my analysis or those of my guests, but to engage with the process is important. I'd love that. And I love the fact that a conversation is going on. I can see that across social media and beyond in staff rooms across the country. It's nice that that's happening. It's nice that people seem to be engaging with the process, and that's really important regardless of who it is you decide to put numbers into the boxes next to. So without further ado, though, I'll tell you what I should correct straight away. Actually, looking at this, I've made a mistake there. It should be purple, shouldn't it? It should be a purple border on today's show. Leanne Antoine is, I never said co-host, but we don't do the show together. That's a crime. We should do some shows together. But Leanne also hosts a Chewing It Over once a month for us, and a brilliant colleague of mine. I will admit that's a bias. We've worked together now, trying increasingly so to supported us recently at Therapy Live. And someone that whose voice I want you to hear more of, and you should have hopefully tuned into some of her brilliant shows on Chewing It Over. But today she's here as a guest, as a CSP Council candidate, and so hopefully another click brings her in. Leanne, can you hear me?
I can hear you. All good.
Okay, so I've just noticed. Let's just click around because that's going to obscure me. So as much as I know that we love the purple, let's maybe put the purple in the background. And we'll go from there. We'll go from there. So for those that maybe don't know you, just tell them a little bit about yourself and give the intro, as well as then if you can tag along why it is you're running for council, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I also, just before we start, I just wanted to touch on the fact that, because it's funny listening to you introduce me, and the fact that do a bit of the hosting, and then I've helped out on Therapy Live. Like, I sound like I'm building up a bit of a profile for myself. and on the one hand, like, it's great. And I hope that people that are listening today will really, some of this is testament to my hard work over quite a number of years to be at this point. I haven't just arrived, and I'm humble in my journey. Like, every time I talk to you, Jack, it comes from a place of me being able to be very open with you in terms of what we speak about, but I also then promote and market myself in exactly the same way, because I cannot be somebody who I'm not, So for those people who are listening, my name's Leanne Antoine. I am a chartered physiotherapist. I started off as a physio assistant at Barnet General Hospital. I did my physio degree whilst I was training. So I was a physio assistant at the same time as training. I went to Colchester Institute. My tutor's Jenny that I remember the most, and Martin was like our sort of study guide. And there were 28 of us in my cohort. I was the only person of colour. I do think there was another black guy that came in or joined our cohort maybe in my final year. But I feel like I trained at a time, and particularly as a physio assistant, at a time when care was care. Like, and I'm not I'm not removing the sort of outcome measure side of things, but when patients then brought in like cakes and gifts to say thank you, that's kind of the era of NHS that I grew up in, this real sort of community feel on the wards, and where the wards were huts and we wheeled patients in their wheelchairs and had blankets over the top of them. So although that might well be telling some of my age, I think it's important for people to know kind of some of my background and where I've come from.
Right.
And coming out of doing physio assistant work and then training, I then worked in the NHS for quite some time, and then kind of moved into private direction just over time, you know, private hospitals, private clinics, Arsenal women's reserve team football, Tring Park Ballet with a couple of mentors for my masters. And I've just had a really fruitful physiotherapy journey. So that's who I am. On top of that, I'm the daughter to Denise and Gus Antoine. I am one of four. I have, you know, I come from a really, I'm going to say healthy family, you know, in terms of dynamics. I'm not saying we don't have issues, all families do, but I come from a very connected family. And if people follow me on social media, I raise my dad up quite a lot in my stories and stuff. He's very pivotal in, I think, in the person that I am, in the person that I've become, and probably the person I'm going to be. He's shaped a lot of that for me in terms of the fact that I can have very open conversations with him. Sometimes that's broken our relationships down, but sometimes it's really built it up as well. And I think that those exposures that I've had from a very early age in terms of those abilities to, you know, break down relationships, rebuild them, push them, see when they're going well, I think has really set me in really good stead in terms of how I look after my patients now, but also the connections that I build with people that I work with, people like yourself, people that I network with outside of physiotherapy. And maybe that brings me on to some of why I am running, like, you know, because I think that for people who have truly followed me, like if you're someone who's had an eye on me for a while, you will notice that I don't spend a lot of time talking to physiotherapists. I don't market to physios. I don't push my, you know, research or evidence-based practice or stuff. I don't actually push that on to physiotherapists. The way that I advertise and market myself is heavily towards my patients, and it's heavily towards the educational marketing side of things. That's what I do. That's what I do really well. And I say that because it's something I've spent time on, like enhancing. I've spent money on it to understand what some of my skill set is, how I can, you know, be in my best light. And I do that really well with good communication to my patients. And I guess some of that has come out of the fact that, particularly when I worked in the NHS, I felt like we had to be a staff quite anonymous, you know, and I spoke about this at the last show that we did. I don't like the anonymity in terms of my relationship building with my patients, you know, because I think that this element of being relatable or understanding your patients, and even if that comes from the fact that you've treated 20,000 hip replacements, so the one that this person's come into you with now is not alien to you, even if it feels like that person thinks they're taking a long time to recover. I think all of this is really important. And what I have noticed over time is that there's there's a disconnect with us, with some of us as physiotherapists, in being able to support and empower each other. And I feel like when we do that, we then don't have the positive, healthy engagement that I then think we could accrue with our patients, you know? So a massive part of me running is about boosting some of that visibility of us to the public. I know most people will know that I have a real passion for working with our upcoming generation. I do, because I think if they understand what we do from an early age, we will not be the back burner of thought in terms of, you know, rehabilitation from whatever the surgery might be, health and care management, which we know, particularly in relation to the pandemic, has massive value to the world that we're currently living in, you know. And I think that as with this profile that I've then been building over time, my communication with physiotherapists has grown. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really interesting point and an interesting distinction in terms of obviously what I broadcast to and really prioritize is into professional. And with yours, you've gone direct to patients as well as direct to, you do a lot of schooling reach and things like that. And your public speaking has then been very public and social focused. I think one of the things that I want to just pick up with you, because just for the audience, you're probably already picking up on this and you might know a bit about our background both separately and then together more recently, is that this is an ongoing conversation of which some of which we're making public now. And I'm really proud to be one of Leanne's nominees for this position. And we've got, we might come to this and some of the back and forth that we've had about the timing of it and the amount of things that Leanne is up to. But one of the things I wanted to pick up with you is, because we've definitely touched on it before, but one of the concerns that sometimes people have, and I think it's a funny thing in our profession and somewhat in healthcare as well, is that there is something to be said for a self-esteem and a confidence that comes through and understanding your own skill set and recognizing then what you want to lean into, promote, create visibility on, which sometimes grates on some within our profession and some within healthcare, because it feels that the nature of being understanding and community focused and team focused and things like that naturally means that there isn't individual skill set that could be leaned on, and that me and you have been two that not two of many, but not it's something that is a rarer thing where we're willing to sort of puff his chest out sometimes and be all of us and somewhat more public with that. Is that something that you took to naturally because you just realized, look, that's so in part of me, I can't help myself, or is it something that you had to grapple with through your career?
That's a good question. So I remember being mentored by someone when I was a band 6. And when I told them I was going to do my master's, they said that I was fast tracking myself. Like I was advancing myself quickly, within my career. And not that it was, they weren't saying it negatively, but they also weren't saying it positively. They were just stating a fact. Right. Me enhancing my knowledge base in physiotherapy the way I was going to fast track me. Now, I understand in some context as to where they were coming from. What I don't think I probably grasped at that point was the exposure that my master's was going to give me in terms of the people I was going to meet along the way.
Right.
That was my colleagues, but then also my educators as well, right? And just thinking about the places I was also working in. Because I think that I was empowered by the knowledge that I acquired through doing my master's. I also learned stuff about myself that, so going through my master's was when I found out I was dyslexic and dyspraxic. Right. So I'd gone through my whole educational life knowing that I was struggling with studies, but just worked harder than everyone and felt like that was what I had to do. So I think there were a lot of things that I learned about myself along the way that then were very, very difficult for me to deal with at the time.
Right.
But then when I came out of the other side of it all, those lessons then taught me stuff about myself that I realized I could apply to business. But the person who really got me onto social media was my brother.
Right.
He was like, Lee, you're not on Twitter, you're not on Instagram, you're not on Facebook, you're not doing any of this. You've got this business. And he's like, people are calling. Because what actually happened was my grandmother died and we repatriated her body back to Grenada.
Right.
And at the time, I had only had Distinct for 6 months. Now, I was reducing my time in the private hospital I was working so that half of my time would have been spent looking after my grandmother and half of the time would have been spent working, building Distinct. She died in the middle of it, Jack, right? So what then happened was it was me and my sister. I said to you, I'm one of 4. Me, my sister, my mum and dad. We took my grandmother's body back to Grenada to bury her. And my brother was left with my mobile phone and at the time, my paper diary. And he was saying, when I said to him, listen, I don't know how many calls you're going to get. I'm not really sure how. And he said to me, don't worry, Lee. My brother is really a salesman. He really is, even though that's not what he does, but he is. And he said, don't worry, Lee, whoever calls, I'll sort it out. I'll do the geography so you're not doing home visits all over the place. I've got it covered. And I was like, okay, whatever. And when I came back, he was like, Leanne, I don't actually know how you're going to manage this. You've had so many calls, your diary's full. And he kind of went through things to me. And I was like, I had no idea how this just all happened. And then he says to me about this social media stuff. And I say to him, well, I just don't think that that's for me. I'm very private, you know, and I think this may well be difficult for people to grasp, but as much as an extrovert as I come across, I'm actually very introverted, you know. I enjoy spending time on my own. I have a TV that's about 25 years old. I don't watch it. I listen to a lot of podcasts, self-development stuff. I'm involved in groups of networking with people because I'm really interested in human behavior. And I guess these are things that I don't really talk too much about. But when he said this to me, he was obviously asking me to put some of this out, you know, in a way that an audience could receive it and relate to it. So, you know, he said to me, just do one, you know, just do something, join one. So I joined Facebook first. Then I did a little bit of Feel Good Friday, and I would turn up every Friday somewhere different, talking about something. He said to me, talk about something. You're a really good physio, but do people really understand that? Do people understand what physiotherapy is? So talk to them about something that you spoke to about something in the week. And I was like, all right, fine. So I started and I sent it to him. What do you think? Yeah, it was all right. But he then said to me, but you don't smile. You're not smiling. I said, well, okay. I better wear a smile. So this is how the presence on social media came. And me then also having this focus on the patient, because obviously I wanted to talk to the patient because they're the ones that are going to be coming in to use my service. And I have to say, I came out of working with or for people because a little bit of me never felt like some of who I was being harnessed or nurtured. I couldn't be creative. I've learned stuff about myself in the last 6 years that I just didn't know I could do or reach or be or achieve, because we were so concerned about, you know, yes, I understand what it is to be part of a team and teamwork, but it's also really important, and this is some of Deloitte's work, talking about human capital trends. In order to really build your workforce, pick out of each person within that workforce, pick them out and find out what they're good at, what makes them tick outside of work. How can you bring that skill set into your workplace? Number one, to retain that member of staff, but number two, to really enhance their enjoyment. You know, there's a lot of evidence with, I think it's Nescafe, I believe, who talk about a lot of people would sooner take the satisfaction of their managers telling them that they've done a good job over an increase in their salary. Like, this is powerful stuff, Jack, you know, but behind the scenes, this is the stuff that I'm really passionate about, that I'm really interested in, you know.
I think that's what's interesting, because definitely it's no one does it on purpose, but you know, you'll have heard of tall poppy syndrome, whereby that there's this nature whereby sometimes people are trying to neutralize, say, everyone wants that's a similarity, and so they're trying to sometimes trim some of that off the top instead of then enhancing and allowing for people to flourish and to try and get to know whatever it is, whatever member of the team, so that they can be their best self. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also it's interesting how you've just mapped that onto your journey as to how you've come to realize that both in yourself, and then I know you do a lot of work then trying to bring that forward in others, and you're recent chewing it over. If people want to look back over that, spoke to that brilliantly, like enhancing value. But I want to just try and understand, because a few different ways in which we've interacted. Then you do a lot of work, as you've just described it, within yourself, your business, some of the spokespeople, person stuff you do in reaching to schools. Then you also recognize then your interest in sort of systemic factors that affect things. So there's some, racial injustice we've spoken about before, and we can go into, no doubt, in more detail in a second. But then also we first met in person over PMI. The idea in which, of course, the attributable value to physio consults in private practice is being sort of monopolized by certain large insurance companies, etc. And it just seems that process you wanted to speak out about, and so we did. We put a show together, and you came up here and were one of the first people in this studio, which recently is like a Zoom studio, which is a shame. I love those days where we got in here and did shows face to face. But then there's this next level, which I'm intrigued about, right? So the next level, like, I didn't know whether it would be for you, whether it'd be too much, but you want to go that next step to then feel that the same principles that have got you where you've done those campaigns, you then want to then be a representative for the whole profession of physiotherapy and be on CSP Council, and you feel that you've got a lot you can bring to that. Is that something that you feel is just a natural process from what I've just described, or is there something different about it? Is there something that's especially making you want to take that next step?
I think that it's a combination, of things. When you first get your first graduate job, you're working your band 5. A lot of people are thinking, right, thanks, Joe. A lot of people are thinking from their band 5 position, when am I going to be a band 6? When am I going to be a band 7? And maybe some of that push in banding has also then got people thinking about, are they going to take on students? Are they going to educate their team? Where does this position them? Because there are these very traditional routes that have been laid out by the system, right? Mm-hmm. And what I realized was that system, for me, did not allow my individuality. And I think I've just always, I'm going to say felt different. And I'm going to use that very loosely because I don't know how everybody else feels about themselves. But in my head, I was going, okay, hold on. Do people stay in the same job like 25 years? Is this it? Band 5, band 6, band 7, band 8A, band 8B, Is this it? Because if it is, this is not for me. And I come from a competitive background. So as a gymnast, I did women's artistic gymnastics. I did all 4 pieces, but I loved floor and vaults. If we did 2-piece competitions, Leanne's going to do floor and vault for sure, And I loved the fact that it was dynamic like that. I also then loved to travel. So to me, these additional facets of things that I've done since I was 3 years old, I was a gymnast from the age of 3, it feels like it's then in the heart of who I am, right? I also then think that some of us, and we talk about this all the time, people in healthcare are doing it. Oh, the people in healthcare, they do it because they care and they're passionate about people and people have got to earn money, right? And for some people, the job that they're doing, yes, is their passion. For others, it will be just a job, right? Mm-hmm. For me, physiotherapy has felt very, very vocational. Like this is one of the reasons why I am on the planet. Be able to understand what your purpose to be on the planet is a big deal, because a lot of us are not really introspective enough to know why we're here. Like I feel like I have a role to help people. My patients are those people. Some people might dispute that, oh, Leanne, this is all mamby-pamby. Maybe. But I think when you spend a little bit of time being introspective, it's not mamby-pamby, because you yourself will be asking the questions as to why you do what you do, how you do what you do. Is that good for you, not good for you? The relationships that you keep, don't keep, are they good for you? So I think some of it has been very, very organic. I also think when you push back against certain things, you're fighting for something. I think you're then having to use quite a lot of energy expenditure to push back against something, and things end up pushing back against you. So I explained to you, and I've said this to you before, this time last year, somebody had said to me about, running for council. I'd have been like, oh no, I don't really know about that. My life has changed a lot since this time last year, in terms of, I now have my own physiotherapy studio, my own sort of wellness clinic. I am now a nominee for CSP Council. I'm probably doing more schools now than I've done, before. A lot more people are starting to reach out to me. And I think that it's then given me the scope to think about what my voice means as a physiotherapist for us as a profession. And then, you cannot take away from the fact that as a council member, you're a representative of that body, but then I also am a member of that body, and what do we all want that to look like, to feel like, how do we want that engagement to best fulfill what we think we want out of our profession, and how it looks front facing and how it looks at the back too, right? You need this foundation. And if we haven't got good foundations to build, we don't take this any further forward, regardless of what the statistics might show in terms of trying to get people of different ethnicities at board level, regardless of what that might say about the number of women or the number of men practicing at board level. None of that matters if we don't have the foundation right. So to me, council nominations and the representation of it now is about the change of the world economically, but then moving forward in a direction that we think is going to cater for what we think this looks like in the future.
Because that's the thing that's been interesting, hasn't it, about the fact that you, unlike some others, feel that the culture shift is key to that. You know, there's this change in the sort of cultural way in which not just the CSP but the profession at large would adapt to try and understand that enhancing individual skill set for the betterment of the collective. And I think that that's one of the things that's been fascinating about our ongoing conversations. It's not a coincidence that your company is called Distinct, and you're describing a lot of distinctions about yourself and about the way in which you wanted to practice and the way in which you wanted to share that. One of the things that if I was to play devil's advocate, then do you feel that you're able to empathize and therefore represent those in the profession that are natural careerists within that aren't able to exert as much influence on a larger machinery, say in the public sector, that then obviously are doing everything that they can, many of which obviously loving and enjoying their jobs, and I'm not suggesting that they're in, say, stale work, really. I'm just meaning that there are very different approaches to your current clinical existence. How would you feel that you could best represent and understand them?
I think this is, having worked within the system is also part of developing that understanding, right? And I think within any team environment, within any system, you know, if you look at people who are listening now, when you think about the teams that you work in, and if you don't work in a team and you're a sole practice person, but who are the people you connect with, there's always someone who's a mother hen, you know? There's always someone who's working really hard, like they're working their butt off day in, day out. They don't take any sick leave. There's always the person who seems to take too much sick leave. There's always the person who seems to have their stuff under control, right? And I think that what this teaches us, and this is world order stuff, right? This is Eckhart Tolle, a lot of Eckhart Tolle's work, right, is that our existence, you know, we need all of that. We need a bit of everyone to make our world, you know. So how would the world look, or how would this all look if everybody was like me? You know, it doesn't make sense, you know. So you have to have this balance. You have to have the people who are okay or good within the system, and there are some people who will thrive and do really well within that, and that structure is brilliant for them. We have the people that don't do so well in that system and they need something else. We've got the people in the middle who like a little bit of both. And I think that my representation on board level will be strong because of my appreciation of that from ground level. Remember, as a physio assistant, the basics of what I have learned were fundamentally shown to me at that point. You know, I was 18 then. Yeah. So I was, you know, raised within that structure, within that system. But I think if that system is flexible enough, it is allowing the people within it to shine, you know. And I think, personally speaking, that the CSP should be giving the people the right equipment and resources to enable that to happen. And as Joe says, you need your disruptors. People like yourself, you know, are disruptors. There are a lot of people within our communities who are disruptors. Some of them disrupt very fruitfully, very well. They add an additional perspective. Some don't do it so well. Some don't without getting backlash. So I think that we have to understand that it's so many to make a world, and no man is an island. You know, it's a team, it's a collaborative effort, and it's this coming together that I think is going to be very strong on the people that they decide to vote to become council representatives.
Absolutely. No, it's a great way for us to finish as well. We're out of time, I'm afraid. Obviously, me and you could do this for hours. Thank you so much. It's been great in this. We speak fairly often and not about dissimilar topics, but in this context, it's been an exciting one to go through and get into the nitty gritty of this, and especially because I know how meaningful it is for your story to have motivated your action on this. You know, it's really relevant.
Yeah.
It's really relevant. So I'm glad we've been able to get that through, because from what I understand and from supporting your application, it's and it comes through on in your text that people should have a read of as well, is that if we get the foundations right, if we get the culture right, if we can help people to have the resources and tools and support to be their best selves, then there is a lot of talent in the profession that can flourish and can help us to take that opportunity as individuals, as small groups, and then as a large group and as an organization and a profession at large. You know, those layers that you've just talked about so brilliantly. It feels like that can really manifest and be able to kick on for the modern world. So I'm so excited for your candidacy. I wish you all the best. No doubt we'll speak again on various many topics. Please do tune in to Tune It Over's Takeover. Second Tuesday, I think it is, of every month. Have I got that right?
Tuesday of every month. Yeah.
And certainly more to come from Leanne and more to come from us together, unless she goes off me, of course, which she's welcome to do. But at the moment, all's going well. And thank you so much as ever for your time, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I just want to say, Jack, my hashtag for everyone is Lead with Leanne. Lead with Leanne. And to lead with me is to bring everyone with me. You know, those that want that positivity and those that want to enhance this and help physiotherapy to strive, not just survive. It's Lead with Leanne.
Brilliant. Thanks, and that's at Distinct Physio, is it all across social media?
Yeah, at Distinct Physio, right across social media. You can't miss me. Where there's purple, there's Leanne.
Absolutely. Right. Thanks, mate. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow.